Hi, I'm Chef Frank. This is Proto Cooks, and today we're going to make carnitas for tacos. For my carnitas, I'm using a pork picnic shoulder. Now, there's two cuts of meat from the front of the animal, and the picnic shoulder or picnic ham is the front leg, okay? If you look at this piece of meat, this is where the foot would go. This is where the Boston butt would be. Boston butt's mainly used for sausages and pork, like pulled pork and stuff like that. So this is a fairly cheap cut of meat, and this is not gonna be all made into carnitas. What's great about this piece of meat is, I think I paid 99 cents a pound for it, and it's still great for all the same things that you use a Boston butt for. It just takes a little more work. So I'm gonna show you how to bone this out and how I use it for my carnitas. This picnic shoulder has a lot of different cuts of meat. It also has a bone. It has some skin on it too, which is great because I can use this skin to make chicharrones. I make this skin into ramen stock. I use the bone for ramen stock. So it's a really good cut to have because you get more than just one thing out of it. So all I'm gonna do is, because I'm not really worried about anything being too precise with this, is I'm just gonna peel away different muscles, and I'm gonna chop them up and put them in my pot, okay? And I'm just going along the natural seams, okay? And I'm gonna cut pieces off. So I just take out the natural seams of the muscles. I want a little fat in here. I'm gonna cook this in fat. Normally I use lard, but I don't have a lot of lard, so I'm gonna use a little lard and some vegetable fat. So you can see this is what attaches to the shoulder blade. And if I poke around in here, the back of my knife will run along the bone. And I can take that bone out. Okay, the back of my knife goes along the bone. And this is kind of the front leg of the animal. I'm just gonna take off the meat and I'm gonna cube it up, okay? So this is what I have. I have my bone that comes out. And I'll make sure not to waste any meat. Any trim you can use for sausage. You can use it for a lot of different things here. And I'll take the meat off, all the meat off the bone and try and get as much off as I can. This bone doesn't go to waste. I'm gonna use this for stock or for broth, okay? Take that all off. Wrestle with it a little. It's always fun when you're wrestling with it, okay? Okay, so there's the bone. There's a little bit of meat on here. I'm not too worried about it because I'm gonna make some soup out of this. Put it on my plate. I'm gonna cut this right down the middle because this will make a really nice roast as far as I'm concerned. So I'll probably save this piece, tie it up and make a nice roast. And the rest of it, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the skin off of this and save the skin. But what I'm gonna do with the rest of this is just cut it into decent sized cubes, okay? It's gonna go into my pot. So what is that, about 1.5, 2-inch cubes? It's gonna go into my pot. I'll save all of my trim for stock. And then I'll show you how to marinate it. Finish dicing this into my pieces. Have a little bit of fat, took the skin off, right into the pot. I usually make these for tacos, for when friends come over. It's an easy thing to do because it's basically a one-pot meal. So I have about 3 bay leaves. I'm just gonna throw some bay leaves in there. Oranges. And these oranges aren't the newest oranges I have, and I'm not too worried about that. And this is basically my marinade, okay? I'm just gonna whack these up in big enough pieces so that after they cook, I can pull them out, right? I want the rind and I want the juice in there, okay? Orange rind, orange juice, okay? And then garlic. So I have about, I don't know, about 2 pounds of meat, and then I have probably close to a head of garlic, maybe a little less than a head of garlic. And I'm just gonna rough chop this. Rough chop. I'm not too worried about it being fine. we're just gonna chop it up so I can get some nice flavor into my carnitas. Okay, right into the pot. And then last but not least, I'm gonna add salt and pepper. So black pepper and salt. And I'm gonna go heavy on the salt here, right? About maybe 3 or 4 tablespoons of salt and some nice fresh cracked black pepper. I think fresh cracked just tastes better. It's delicious, it's more fragrant, so use fresh cracked if you can. Lots of pepper. And then what I do is this. Clean off my board just a little. I get in there and I rub it around. Mix it around really good so that everything gets kind of covered in the marinade. And I'm gonna let this sit for a couple of hours. So now that this is sat for a couple hours, and I kept it in the fridge, I didn't wanna leave it out for 2 hours because that would be dangerous. I'm gonna cook it in fat. So I have a little bit of lard, so I'm gonna throw the lard in there, but I don't have enough lard to cover, so I'm gonna use some vegetable oil. Lard is the best for this, I feel, and I'm just gonna cover the meat. Remember, the meat's gonna give off some of its own juice, some of its own fat, so I'm just getting in there to cover it, and then I'm gonna throw it on the stove. I have the carnitas that have been marinated in the fat on the stove. Have it on high heat right now. And all I'm gonna do is get it on high heat and stir it around until all the fat is melted and the meat starts to cook. Once I see that the meat is starting to cook, I lower the heat down to medium. I stir it every 10 minutes until the meat is cooked. And what I'm looking for the finished meat to taste like or to be like texture-wise is that it's fork tender and it shreds lightly. So now that the carnitas are on the stove and cooking, I like to keep them fairly soft. You'll see carnitas that are really crispy and dark brown. I like mine a little softer because I'm putting it in a taco and I don't really need it to be crispy. I just like those flavors of the orange and the garlic and the bay leaf to meld and put them on a taco so they're just being shredded, not necessarily shredded and brown. So when they're ready, we'll take them off and I'll show you what I'm talking about. The carnitas have been on the stove for about an hour, right? And that's great because they have to cook down in the fat and get nice and soft and tender. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you this. I'm gonna scoop it out. I have a nice strainer. I'm not gonna take them all out of the pot right now, but look what happens, right? I'll put them on the plate over here. I'm gonna move this over. We'll get to the rest of them later. But look what happened, right? I have the orange peels, which I'm just gonna pull out because you don't need the orange peels. They're there just to flavor, right? But look at what goes on with this meat, right? It got a little brown. It's not super brown, but look how super tender that is. This cut of meat isn't tender like this. It takes a long time to get this way. So we've cooked this for about an hour, hour and a half. And all I'm gonna do with my, my tongs is break it up, okay? Break it up just a little bit. And I'm gonna make some simple tacos with this. In America, we tend to put everything on tacos, right? So I got my plate. I'm gonna move this forward. I'm gonna get my tortillas. I have 2 really nice corn tortillas here, okay? I'm gonna take the meat, I'm gonna shred it up just a little. And in Mexico, when you get a taco, it's not this huge deal and a ton of meat, and it doesn't have a ton of things on it and toppings. It's just a little bit of the meat, okay? I made some pickled onions. You can check that video out when you have time. I made a video for pickled onions. A little bit of pickled onions on top. These have a little chilies in them, so it's a little spicy, which is good, okay? A little fresh cilantro, right? And I just take this. I don't mind if there's a little stem in there. The stems are pretty good. As long as you break it up, they're delicious. Now, that doesn't mean to say that if you want to put other stuff on this, you want to put sour cream and cheese and stuff like that on it, you can do that. That's fine. I'm not, you know, going to look down on you for that. But for the most part, this is a taco at its simplest, right? A little bit of lime juice. I have a little piece of lime, a little bit of lime juice, and you eat. Delicious, simple carnitas taco. Absolutely delicious. Goes good with a margarita. If you want to do this at home, it's not that hard. It's kind of a one-pot meal. Pickled onions, you can make those too. I have a video for that. But until next time, enjoy. See you soon.